Hey, what's going on guys? Arekkz here. Welcome back to another video for Cyberpunk 2077. And in this one, I want to take some time to answer some of your questions. If you caught yesterday's video, then you'll know that I had a chance to go hands-on, very fortunately, thanks to the awesome guys over at CD Projekt Red, with Cyberpunk for about 4 hours. I played from the very beginning of the game, and yesterday I uploaded my initial gameplay impressions, my kind of first impressions from jumping into the game in that condensed segment. So if you guys haven't seen that, and you want to check it out alongside some crispy 4K gameplay, then I'll link that down below, or you can find it over on the channel. But today, what I thought I'd do is answer some more questions. I did spend some time yesterday going through a lot of the comments in the, the YouTube comments and answering a lot of questions from you guys. But this morning, I put out a tweet to basically ask if there was anything else you wanted to know, and I've then picked up a load of those. So there's just a bunch of questions answered in here. Again, if you've got more questions that I haven't answered, drop them in the comments down below, and I will jump in and try and answer those as well. Keep in mind, I have only played from the very beginning of the game, so I don't have any concept as to how the game is end game, what it's like to have a fully specced out character. All of my experience is from the very first 4 hours. Anyway, if you do enjoy this, I'd like to be super appreciated. And if you are hyped for Cyberpunk, make sure you keep it locked because we've got plenty more videos coming your way. We're going to be covering this game extensively, so subscribe, turn on notifications so you don't miss the future videos. Now, starting from the top, I've got a question from Inel who says, other than following the main missions, what sort of downtime activities or side quests does the game include to allow the player to immerse themselves in Night City? Examples like gambling, clubbing, gymming it, etc. So from my time playing, again, there may be more stuff as you explore the city, but when I kind of got to the part where I had finished the initial story mission, or the kind of initial like prologue mission, and the map started to open up, the things that I was exposed to were, there were kind of little like brawl activities where there's kind of, I guess it's like gang fights. There were things I can kind of go over and sort of get involved in these little sort of battles, so to speak. There were also some sections where I went around and you've kind of got these street stories. So these will vary depending on the characters you have. You can actually bring up your phone and you'll get text messages from different people that'll kind of detail, your involvement in these stories. The one that I went to try and do was to basically kind of root out like a sort of dirty cop. So you had to kind of go into the, into the kind of marketplace, ask around, ask if anyone knew them. Then you had to sort of sneak around and sort of find them. Fun thing for this one is, you could just run up into the room and take them out. But what I actually did was I went into the security room first and I turned off all the cameras that were looking at that window. So then no one would see that I'd taken them out. So I don't know whether that was necessary, but nobody saw me in the process. So I guess it was a good thing. Of course, outside of that, there are also some I'm not sure what they were called, but there was like a mission where there'd be like a crate inside some kind of area. The one that I went to go to was like inside a garage, but it was obviously a gang garage because it was heavily armed. But if you sneak in there, you can basically get some items from that. I was actually too low level for it. I got killed, but that was something you could go after. Not too sure outside of that what other things, you could do, but there are lots and lots of kind of icons all over the map, things you can get involved in, missions, side stories. Apparently some of them will be quite quick, but some of the side stories, some of the side quests will actually be pretty vast, pretty kind of broad and branching, and they'll actually go over and, expand the story quite a lot. So yeah, there do seem to be quite a lot of things, and at CD Projekt Red, I would imagine there probably will be some kind of mini games like, gambling, that kind of stuff, but I didn't get to encounter that. Question from GM Molly says, do you know if a non-cybered playthrough is possible or feasible? Now again, I don't know the answer to this, however by playing, I get the impression that beyond the initial upgrades, you're kind of free to choose what you want. I mentioned the other day that when it comes to upgrading your character, you visit the Ripper docks and you can then basically install these different augments. In the prologue, you are kind of forced to install the eye upgrade, which basically just gives you a better heads-up display, so you kind of need that because it's the HUD for the game. And you also get a hand upgrade, which is just basically, it kind of connects with your gun, gives you heads-up display for like your bullets and stuff. So they're the kind of narrative ones. But beyond that point, a lot of the upgrades in the Ripper docks are linked to having street cred, which you accrue by playing throughout the game. So, early on you can't necessarily get them, but also they are down to you to choose. I don't know, there may be missions later on where there's a couple that you have to have. There could come a mission where they're like, you're going to need some arm blades. But to my knowledge, a lot of that stuff is pretty free to choose, so I'd imagine there probably is some kind of potential for a minimal cyber playthrough. Question from TwoSixNine says, how big was the map? So this one, we got to play in a kind of a sort of lockdown area. Keep in mind, it is obviously like an open world, but in the kind of initial playthrough that we had, it was one of those sort of narratively closed off areas. If you think about like when you play GTA, right at the beginning, you can't quite go everywhere because there's like police blockades. Same kind of thing applied to Cyberpunk. but what I was able to do was zoom out on the map. Now, a lot of it was covered by the fog of war, so I couldn't actually see the physical boundaries of the map, but I was able to scroll pretty far. So considering how big the kind of downtown area that I was in felt, and knowing that I was then able to, you know, I guess if I took the map that I was in, I was able to kind of scroll out 2, 3, maybe 4 times that distance, I'd say it is pretty big. I think they said there were, is it 4 or 5 different districts? I can't remember exactly, but yeah, I get the impression that it's going to be a pretty big map. Obviously, you know, map scale feels slightly different because when you've got a game where you've got cars, maps don't always feel as big as if you're kind of going somewhere on foot or going somewhere on horseback. So, you know, depends on how it'll feel. But yeah, it looks pretty sizable. Question from Toxie Moxie says, is there clothing customization? Yes, there most definitely is. There are plenty of swaggy options. In fact, I went to a shop. It's funny because I had my you know, my freedom to go wherever I wanted, and the first place I went was a clothes shop, and I managed to buy myself a swaggy gold Oni face mask. But there was loads of cool stuff. There's headgear, you know, headphones, masks, other things you can put on. You've got suits, and like, when it comes to like customizing your character, you have individual items like t-shirts and jackets and trousers and boots and things like that. But then you also have outfits. So for one of the missions I was doing, I got a suit as an outfit. I mean, I didn't actually get to do that mission. That was basically where the demo ended. But at the end of it, you get given a suit because you have to go somewhere fancy. So when it comes to customization, some of them are pre-compiled outfits, other ones are individual items, but yes, there is plenty of customization. There are plenty of different clothes shops for you to go to. Keep in mind that different places will sell different things, much like different Ripper Docs sell different things, so there's definitely value in going around. Fabian Mario Duela, I believe that's how you pronounce your name, said, does it have a big head mode? I don't think so. I'm sad. I really hope it does. That would be awesome, but sadly not. Mighty Life Crisis says, is it truly open world? Can you go wherever you want, or are there certain play barriers? I kind of touched on this earlier, but just to kind of like reiterate, I get the impression that once you've kind of done the initial prologue and once you've kind of done the fun of beginning section of the game, it is pretty open world. You can kind of go wherever you want, but right at the beginning when you're doing the prologue, there are kind of areas where you can't go just while they're teaching you the game, so to speak. At MetalmanGG or Felipe said, how does the gunplay feel and do weapons feel different as you try new ones? Now, again, I mentioned this before, gunplay for me, it was a little bit of a weird one to try and sort of give honest feedback on because I was playing through a remote setup. I actually spoke to one of the developers about this afterwards because he was watching my screen and he often said to me that like it looked like I was shooting almost a second too late. So because I was playing through effectively a remote streaming service, I was basically streaming the game. So as a result of that, I was ever slightly delayed, and I think that paired with the fact that auto-aim wasn't perfectly tuned, my kind of experience with gunplay, I still enjoyed it, but it didn't necessarily feel as responsive as I would have liked. But honestly, I think that's genuinely down to the fact that I was playing through a remote streaming system. However, when it comes to how the guns feel, that's actually quite an interesting one because I only got 3 guns, but rather conveniently, I did get 3 pistols. So you'd kind of think, all right, pistols must feel largely the same, but I got, you know, your standard, I'm not really a gun guy, but I'm just going to say like your standard deagle to begin with, and that just fired as you would expect it. But then from one of the story characters, I got this revolver, which felt considerably different, had a lot of kind of kickback with it, felt really, really powerful, had this awesome kind of sight on it as well, and that one actually killed people pretty quickly. And then I had a third pistol, which was like a burst fire one, and all of them felt very, very different. Now, again, you know, quite how that translates when you have even more guns, I don't know, because I only got 3 at my time playing, but if that's anything to go by, then I'd say weapons do definitely have different feelings. Also, as part of Felipe's question, he did say, were you happy with the amount of dialogue options? Yes, there were definitely plenty of those, like in basically everything you do, even just kind of passing dialogues, there were kind of things you can do. And keep in mind, depending on how you spend your points and depending on your backstory, you'll also sometimes get additional options. Like if you're in the streets and you're speaking to someone and you grew up on the streets as like kind of part of your backstory, you may have additional dialogue options, much like if you selected like Corpo and you're in like a corporate environment, you may have options that other people don't have. So sometimes, and they're typically denoted by blue, if there's like an option that you've got because you've spec'd into it or it's something that's unique to you, then you've got these blue options that you can use to kind of, you know, navigate your way around situations or just like ask more questions. Question from Kill the Stranger or a Stranger said, did you get the impression that you could do a no kills walkthrough? That's an interesting one. I don't get the impression that you can do a completely no kills walkthrough because I feel like there are some places where you do need to kill people. However, I could be mistaken. Again, keep in mind, I'm basing this on my initial time playing. What I will say though is that when you go around and you do stealth playthroughs, whenever you grab someone, you have the option to knock them out or to kill them. So it's not just a straight like grab someone, snap their neck, you have the option to choose between passive and lethal takedowns effectively. So with that being said, if that's in there, I do wonder whether there might be the option to do that for the most part. It might be one of those ones where, you know, if you've got a primary target that needs to be taken down, then I guess you could do that. But then also you do have melee combat, so maybe you can just knock everyone out. Honestly, I don't completely know the answer to that, but I will definitely say there are options for, at least down the stealth tree, taking people out without having to kill them. Next up, question from Victix. He said, how did melee feel? Now, this one's an interesting one. Melee, initially, again, it's really hard to sort of give accurate feelings on this based on the very beginning of the game, because a lot of this stuff goes down your trees, right? I mentioned before that I built my character around the body stat because I wanted to have stronger melee. I wanted to kind of have all those different abilities because basically I wanted to be a gym bro. Now, when it comes to general melee, you know, you just have your regular punches, which they feel all right. And then you can obviously block, and you can also hold down the punch button to hit someone. I will say the melee that I got to experience to begin with didn't necessarily feel as kind of rewarding as the gunplay, but I think the reason for that is because I wasn't spec'd into it. Keep in mind, if you go down the melee tree and you get the augments from the Ripper Doc, you can start doing things like getting arm blades. You can do things like you can do aerial takedowns where you can jump down and take someone down. You've got options for grappling people even longer. There's lots of kind of things to enhance that. So I feel like, I mean, that would kind of be the same sort of thing as like, how does it feel to play a warrior in World of Warcraft when you're level 1? It's like, it feels kind of rubbish, and that's like, yeah, because you haven't got any of the cool skills or the upgrades. So it's hard to say. I will say though, I did get to use a katana, not in the actual game, but when you complete the prologue, you get a little kind of training mission, and I went into that one. It kind of teaches you about different things, and in the melee section, you get to pick up a sword. It follows the same kind of parameters as melee combat. You've got like a strong hit, like a weaker hit, a block hit and whatnot, but being able to run up to someone with a sword, I don't know how viable that'll be end game, because obviously, I mean, there's lots of guns and whatnot, but I want to make it work. I want to run up to someone with arm blades and a katana. That's just boss. Question from Ermac said, how are the points during character customization for the skills split? Like, how many total points do you have to spend? Initially, during character customization, you have, I believe it was 6 or 7 points, give or take. So you can effectively spec, you know, a couple of points into the fact that you've got 6 different areas. You can either distribute it evenly, or I basically spent like 3 in body, 2 in tech and 1 in something else. So you don't have too many to begin with, but keep in mind that as you progress, as you level up, you get them quite frequently. So, you know, you're not going to be able to make like a fully spec character from the character creator, but it won't be that long before you're already earning new points. Deranged Shaman says, how much effect on the story did the origin choice have? Quite a lot. I mean, again, this is early on, but if you pick a different origin, you will always start the game in a different way. So the Nomad, if you saw the B-roll that I uploaded yesterday, the Nomad, I believe, starts out in the kind of Badlands area, sort of outside in the garage. The corpos will start in some kind of, you know, fancy, shiny, rich corporate environment. I played as the street kid, so I started out on the streets. I basically, you know, my story began in a bar with a broken nose. I then had to go up and meet someone who is effectively pressuring the bar owner for some money and whatnot. So it will definitely impact the beginning of the game, but I've also been told that it will also impact various aspects throughout the game. And keep in mind, based on your backstory, you will also, in certain situations, in certain circles, have additional dialogue options. Like if you're on the streets and you're speaking to gangs and your backstory is a street kid, then you're going to have options that you can, you know, navigate around. Meanwhile, if you're a street kid and suddenly you're put into a corporate environment, you're probably not going to have the necessary lingo to finesse your way out of like a, I don't know, a dicey business situation, so to speak. So yes, they will definitely have an effect. Quite how drastic beyond that point, I don't know, but it is much more than just like a passing choice. Also, as a kind of follow on from that, Paradise Central also said, how long was the kind of intro section for your faction and kind of what did you think about it? To that point, my initial part, I believe, keep in mind, because I only got to play as one of them, I didn't get to go back and do all 3. I don't know with 100% certainty where the stories converge, but if it's where I think it is, then I feel like it's the first kind of half an hour or so, which is, you know, unique to your backstory, and then you kind of get into the prologue mission where you meet Jackie, and you then go from there, and, you know, things start to kind of link together. That's assuming that the point that I thought was the intro is the intro. So, you know, I don't think it's necessarily too long to begin with, but again, I'm sure there'll be lots of other things throughout the game that will kind of, you know, intersperse and add to that experience. Question from Sonko Kong or Akbar. He said, how far can you upgrade your body implant? Is there a chance for full body upgrades like the Arasaka guy we saw in the trailer? Good question. I don't think you can go as far as that guy. I'm assuming you're talking about the guy that was basically full robot, like full mech walking towards you in the lift. He was crazy intimidating. But I don't think you can go that far. However, there are plenty of options for augments. I spoke about this in the video yesterday, but when you look at that particular section, you go to a Ripper doc, you will see what looks like a kind of human anatomy diagram with loads of lines coming off of it. You can put things into, like from my memory, you can put things into legs, hands, arms. I think hands and arms are different. Hands, arms, eyes. I think there's some like chest and some body ones. There's like a lot of things, a lot of areas, and then within each of those sections, there's multiple areas. So for example, you can put, I think there were like 2 slots in eyes. I don't know whether like upgrades will give you more. I think hands or arms had like 2 or 3. Some of the like bigger ones had multiple slots. So it sounds like you can kind of tier up and have like different, kind of amalgamations of different pieces of equipment. So while I don't think you're going to get to the point where you look like a giant walking robot, I do think under the surface you can be pretty damn tricked out. Question from @ClarkKent or Christoph. He said, how was the kill time with weapons, or was a headshot deadly? I don't think headshots were deadly, at least not with the weapons I had. Again, keep in mind I had a pistol, right? So I don't know whether if I got like a sniper rifle later or some kind of plasma rifle, I don't know whether that would be the case. I know in some of the B-roll that went out, enemies looked a little bit kind of spongy, but I will say the enemies that I fought went down pretty quickly. Like they've got a health bar, right? It is an RPG. It's not going to be, well, there is kind of that balancing thing where, they're creating this believable environment. It's obviously still not necessarily going to be one-tap kill because, there needs to be RPG elements to it. But I will say the enemies that I was fighting didn't feel bullet spongy. Even with like the stronger revolver pistol, a good few shots and they were basically down. And, that was keeping in mind that I didn't necessarily have the best aim because of the delay and whatnot. So, yeah, I think it felt pretty good. Like, I don't feel, I've played games that have got bullet spongy enemies. I've played Division, right? I know what it's like to pile a million bullets into an enemy, have to reload, and they're still not dead. I didn't get that feel from Cyberpunk, and I felt like it was pretty well balanced. I will say there were some that I landed a headshot on, and it pretty much depleted their health. So maybe I think kind of a one-shot headshot is potentially viable. Maybe if you've got the right kind of setup, or maybe the right distance. But yeah, gunplay felt good, and kill time felt appropriate. Shimura says, does it have a third-person mode? It does not. It is first-person while you're playing as your character. It is third-person when you are driving. You can go into first-person for driving, but the only time you'll get third-person, to my understanding, is driving. First-person, the only time you're going to see your character outside of that is cutscenes, in the mirror, that kind of thing. Next up, question from Rory said, did the Braindance mode feel particularly fun or interesting? I'm assuming you actually got to use it. The gameplay in the stream wasn't bad, but it didn't seem hugely interesting. Yes, it is actually really interesting. This one, so this is the thing. I feel like Braindance is one of those things that it doesn't necessarily showcase as well when you watch it at a stream because, there's a lot of things going on. You're trying to kind of make sense of it. Honestly, the first time I jumped into Braindance, it was actually quite overwhelming because there's lots of different layers to it. For any of you guys that missed the stream yesterday, Braindance is basically this ability to go back and replay videos of events that have happened, and you can then dissect them, you can rewind them, you can take down layers, you can basically split the audio and look at it from different angles, you can turn on like heat signatures. It's really, really clever, but I think the thing is it doesn't necessarily display as well on streams because it's kind of like solving a puzzle. It's like, take a game like Uncharted where you're solving like a puzzle. I feel like you watch a game like Uncharted when you're doing gun battles and stuff and you're like, oh, this game looks visually impressive, it looks awesome. But then suddenly when I'm standing in a temple and I'm just rotating blocks around trying to solve a puzzle slowly, you might sit there and think, this game looks kind of boring. So I think Braindance is one of those things that's quite difficult to demonstrate, but it's actually really interesting. Like you go through, the example they gave us, the one that you saw on the stream, the one that I got to play, was basically we just had to replay and find out what happened to this guy. So you play through it naturally, you watch the scene out, you go back afterwards and you scan, say, the gun so that you can kind of see the heat signature for it and then you can find out details about the gun. You go into the shop and then you can find out there are different like dimensions to it, and then you realize that you want to hear some stuff, so you strip back the video layer, listen for the audio, and then you can find different things like that. And the reason this is useful is because there's a main story mission you do later on where you basically have to find this hidden briefcase which has got like a heat signature for it, and it needs to be hidden in a very kind of specific place. So you have to go into this mansion, you have to go and rewatch this CCTV effectively, or this kind of body camera, and then by dissecting all different layers you can work out where it is, so that then later on when you do the mission you know where to find it. So yeah, it's a really, really cool mode. Honestly, the way it plays out, the tools behind it are very, very impressive, but I do think it's one of those things that probably just didn't demo too well. Anyway, for the time being, that is pretty much it. Those are all the questions that I pulled from Twitter for now. Again, if you guys have got more questions, let me know in the comments down below. Maybe I could do a follow-up video on this, or I might just dive into the comments and just try and answer as many as I can like I did yesterday. And again, be sure to keep it locked because we've got more Cyberpunk videos planned for next week. I want to start breaking down some of the kind of individual components, talking about the more detailed stuff like character customization, character like skills and stats and stuff like that. So if you want that kind of granular breakdown information, stick around, turn on notifications because we've got a lot more stuff coming your way. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed that video. Don't forget, if you haven't already done so, you can join the Arekkz Gaming Discord. We've got an awesome community over there with so many different channels for you to chat loads of different topics and different games. I'm in there, the team's in there. If you guys want to chat with us, find people to play with, it's just in general a great place to be. And of course, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to turn on those notifications so you don't miss any of our future uploads.